Today, we will talk about how fiber affects our type 2 diabetes. Fiber is of two types, soluble and insoluble. Just to keep this video as simple as we can, we won't go into too much details about their differences. Most natural foods contain both types of fibers in different proportions. Soluble fiber is the one that dissolves in the water. Insoluble fiber is the one that does not dissolve in the water. Both type of fibers are good for us. Now let's take a look. Does fiber actually help us to control our type 2 diabetes? This study, published in 2012, reviewed the literature available at that time to conclude that insoluble cereal fiber intake under isoenergetic conditions increases whole body insulin sensitivity in both short term and more prolonged studies. Isoenergetic condition simply means that when scientists compared high cereal fiber diet with the high protein diet, they kept the total amount of calories same. They also proposed a novel concept explaining that why does cereal fiber intake improves insulin sensitivity. Cereal fiber may hinder the digestion or absorption of dietary proteins in the upper gut, thereby preventing amino acid induced activation of mammalian target of rapamycin called mTOR, translation initiation factor, serine kinase 6-1 S6K1 for short, signaling pathway. So basically, cereal fiber improves insulin sensitivity by acting on this mTOR S6K1 signaling pathway. This pathway is known to drive insulin resistance in the human body. This next study is a meta-analysis which looks into the dietary fiber for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. They concluded that an intervention involving fiber supplementation for type 2 diabetes mellitus can reduce fasting blood glucose in and HbA1c. This means when type 2 diabetics increase their fiber intake, their fasting blood glucose values and HbA1c values improves. Now remember, HbA1c values give doctor your control of blood sugar level over the last 2 or 3 months. This meta-analysis was published in 2012, and they did mention that more research needs to be done about fiber recommendations in type 2 diabetics. Now let's take a look at more studies. This next study looked at the consumption of dietary fiber and incidence of type 2 diabetes in 8 European countries. This study is called EPIC Interact Study and a meta-analysis of prospective studies. During 10.8 years of follow-up, they identified 11,559 participants with type 2 diabetes, and a sub-cohort of 15,258 participants was selected for the case cohort study. So this study is a pretty reliable study, as we can see they recruited loads of subjects in that study. They concluded that overall evidence indicates that the intake of total and cereal fiber is inversely related to the risk of type 2 diabetes. Means more is the amount of fiber you eat in your diet, less is the risk of you acquiring type 2 diabetes. However, they did acknowledge that people who eat more fiber in general may have a healthier overall dietary pattern. This next study is an umbrella review of all the meta-analysis published from 1 January 1980 to 30th April 2017. They concluded that those consuming the highest amounts of dietary fiber, especially cereal fiber, may benefit from a reduction in the incidence of developing type 2 diabetes. Again, this is consistent with all the studies we discussed earlier that insoluble cereal fiber reduces the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. They also said there appears to be a small reduction in fasting blood glucose concentration as well as a small reduction in glycosylated hemoglobin percentage for individuals with type 2 diabetes who add beta-glucan or psyllium to their daily dietary intake. So what they are saying is fasting blood glucose and HbA1c values improve with increase in the dietary fiber intake. Beta-glucans are simply type of dietary fiber found in oats and barley, and psyllium husk, which is also called asparagus husk, is a product that is called sometimes a fibrogel in over-the-counter medication that you can buy from a chemist. Lastly, this study is an update of author's previous review from 2008. Prospective cohort studies clearly indicate that diets high in insoluble cereal dietary fiber and whole grains might significantly reduce diabetes risk. In contrast, there is no compelling evidence that soluble dietary fiber from fruit and vegetable play a key role in this context. They also concluded that insoluble dietary fiber improved whole body insulin resistance. Soluble dietary fiber, on the other hand, showed inconsistent results in the human study. It is very clear from today's discussion that dietary fiber is good for type 2 diabetics. Dietary fiber in non-diabetics reduces the chance of getting type 2 diabetes, and people who are type 2 diabetes, when they increase their fiber intake, their insulin sensitivity in the body improves. Insoluble dietary fiber showed better outcomes compared to soluble dietary fiber. But we do not need to worry too much about the soluble and insoluble fiber. As I said before, most natural foods, they have both soluble and insoluble fiber in different proportions, and also soluble fiber have got some other benefits as well. So both type of fiber are beneficial for human body in one way or the other. Some examples of fiber rich food are lentils, beans, all vegetables and fruits. But remember, people who are type 2 diabetics, they should eat less fruits and more vegetables. Thank you.